And now, it's that time of the week once again. Welcome to the Departure Lounge podcast with your hosts, Tom Whittle and Steve Wooldridge. Your ticket to the home of aviation podcasts. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
Good evening, friendos, and welcome to episode number 62 of the Departure Lounge podcast here on the Departure Lounge YouTube channel and, of course, Facebook on Visions Aviation. Hope you're well. My name is Tom Whittle. We're going to get straight into introducing everybody else on the show. As joining me this evening, as per normal, is, of course, the co-host of the show, Steve Wooldridge. Steve, a very good evening to you on this Sunday. How are you?
Good evening, Tom. Good evening at home watching. Another exciting show lined up. Should be really good. How's your weekend been there, Tom?
Quiet, I think. After sort of a really busy week, I'm expecting another busy week this week. So I'm just taking the time to recover from it and then prepare for it. So it's a little bit odd. But yeah, no, it's been all right so far. Well, how about you?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same. Everything sort of stopped hurting from work Sunday afternoon, ready to go again. So that's pretty much the deal. I had a nice little barbecue this afternoon and caught up some friends. So it's been a nice weekend for myself.
Lovely. Of course, very quickly, football was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Well, I'm sure there'll be people who are watching who don't know the scores and the like.
Well,
so bit of match of the day tonight. Very very highly recommended.
Absolutely.
And other services are available.
Yeah. Wonderful. Right. We're going to keep you on screen. Ian is not with us tonight. He has internet problems, but he should be in the chat at some point. But also, the reason why we're here, we are very privileged and delighted to welcome an absolute legend of the UK airshow display circuit. It is, of course, Rich Goodwin. Rich, a very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm well, and thank you very much for inviting me. Before I get going and start, I'd just like to say hats off to you guys for organising these sort of things and everyone else involved in promoting air shows, taking photographs, and helping us guys out at the air shows. It's really appreciated, and I hope you're going to enjoy the inside information that I'm going to give you this evening on my biplanes and what we're trying to do with them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, evening, Rich. Yeah, pleasure that you've joined us. And just quickly, shout out to Ian. It's a shame you couldn't be here and that, but absolutely delighted that you could join us tonight. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame, but there'll be other opportunities, I'm sure. Before we get into this evening's show, we'll do a few housekeeping rules before we go into it. So we are on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those links are in the description below. We also have merch, which both me and Steve are rocking tonight.
Oh, I am, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You can buy a face. You have Steve's face, or you can buy the standard logo shirt if you fancy it. The shop is in the description below as well. Of course, if you wish to be a guest on the show, we've got to do is drop us a message on any of the social medias. And if you want to support the channel, do feel free to drop a super chat tonight, and we'll get your comments read out as soon as you do. If you have any questions for Rich as well, do get them into the comments. We'll be asking them throughout the show, as Rich sort of tells us all about everything to do with his biplanes and, of course, air shows. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So, Rich, of course, a lot of people know you as, as I put it there, and I don't think I'm putting it lightly, a legend of the display circuit with the maneuvers that you do with the planes. But, of course, we're going to talk about from the beginning in terms of how sort of your first plane, the G Whiz plane, was built.
So I'm going to have to excuse me if you have any IT problems. So I'm going to put up a screen, and I won't be able to see what you're doing, but I've sort of titled the chat "The Highs and Lows of Biplane Flying" because although you guys see an 8 or 10 minute polished product at an air show, you don't really know what goes on in the background. And I am a bit of a one-man band. I have had a lot of help from a lot of other people, but generally I do the building and the flying myself. And it hasn't always been a rosy picture for one reason or another. And I want to just take you through my story, I guess. First of all, I want to make sure that you can hear me. Can you hear me, Tom? Because I can't get any
Perfect.
feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect,
absolutely
mate.
perfect.
Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. And you probably noticed from the first two photographs the different logos. One of the difficulties I've had over the years is actually getting a sponsor, and it all started as a bit of a hobby. And that's one of the things I want to cover, how I went about trying to get a sponsor, the good bits, the bad bits, the frustrations. But first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about my background, and I'm certainly no one special. And I decided to launch into this sort of thing about 20 years ago. I was lucky. I was privileged to have been in the Air Force. So, not too sure what happened there. I was privileged to initially been in the Air Force, having been to university. First time I tried to get into the Air Force after leaving school, they rejected me. They said, go away, try harder, and get some maturity, get some life experience. So that's what I did. Joined the University Air Squadron, and then did an engineering degree, left, and eventually got into the Air Force went on through fast jet flying and training, and eventually flew the Tornado GR1. Did that for 8 years, including the first Gulf War, and then had about 6 months unemployed where I tried to get a job in the civil aviation. And initially, you probably recognise some of those pictures there. Flew for Air 2000, that then transformed itself into First Choice and then TUI. Another message I want to try and get across is, I guess, one of the highlights of my RAF career was obviously flying the Tornado, but I actually managed to take my father flying in the back of a Tornado just before I left. So that was kind of pretty nice and one of the highlights, I think. But how did I get into biplane flying? Basically, I was flying with another captain, a guy called Dave Keyes. I'd had a personal tragedy in my life at that point in about 2004. He was reading a magazine and says, I'm going to buy a biplane. And I said, oh, well, I wouldn't mind getting involved in that. And next thing you know, we'd been to America and found an Aquasport, put it in a container and shipped it back to UK. And that was my first experience of getting involved with biplanes. Unfortunately, that aeroplane only lasted a few years. I didn't crash it, but someone else crashed it and wrote it off. And then came up with another wacky plan, basically searching through the internet, trying to find another biplane. Came up with a half-built Christian Eagle down in Florida. And basically, we used to do transits through Florida on the 75767 and actually negotiated to buy it over the internet and the phone. And during a trip down to Puerto Vallarta, actually, we used to have a layover in Sanford. So on the night I had off, basically rented a U-Haul truck and drove down and picked up the biplane, and then bribed one of the engineers to stick it in the hold. So you can see the wing there going into the hold of 767. Eventually that came back and it became Christian Eagle. So in 2000, bouncing around, 2010, we started flying this aeroplane, and that's where I guess I cut my teeth, joined the British Aerobatic Association, and that taught me a tremendous amount about flying biplanes, competing in aerobatics, and getting to grips with the beginnings of some airshow flying. And it was during this time that I had to I wanted to go to America and get some experience flying these sort of airplanes before I test flew this one, which we completed and built. Then I met a guy called Steve Wolf who did some training with me, and at an airfield called Leesburg in Florida. He took me to an air show where I witnessed what I'd never seen before in a biplane, which was an air show pilot doing some amazing things. Lots of gyroscopic tumbling maneuvers, loads of smoke, loads of noise, and I couldn't understand why I'd never seen anything like this before, other than the trip at this air show. It was a pretty famous air show pilot, and I got back to UK with great enthusiasm and thought, well, I'm gonna have a go at that. Bearing in mind this is like 20 years ago, so I'm not going to say how old I was, but I was in my 40s. I decided, and one of the messages I also want to put out there is that it's never too late. If you see something you want to have a go at, then don't talk about it, get on and do it. The last thing you want to do is sit on your deathbed and look back and say, "Oh, I wish I'd done that." So I thought I'd have a go at it. So I had a bit of experience dealing with the Light Aviation Authority and home-built aeroplanes, because I've been building another particular type of aeroplane. And I approached the LAA and said, well, I've got this aeroplane, I want to stick a six-cylinder engine on it and modify it and all this sort of stuff. And they sort of said, whoa, get back in your box. It's then I started to realise that actually it's not as straightforward and it's not as easy as just bolting things on and adding things. And I'm not, in America, they have a different system, it's a patent system, whereby responsibility lies a lot more with the pilot and the engineer and the person building it rather than the regulator. I'm not knocking our system. I'm thankful that we do have. Going backwards now. I'm thankful that we do have a system like this in place for everyone's safety. So when I found out that it was going to be very hard to modify the Eagle, I did a bit of research, and the objective was to find a biplane with a six-cylinder engine that was on the home built register, and eventually I found one. I was thrilled to bits. My wife wasn't. I broke the news to her that I'd remortgaged the house, and she was in the bath. She just basically burst into tears in order to go and buy this aeroplane on a bit of a wing and a prayer. So I'm just going to talk you through a bit about gee whiz, the origins of the aeroplane. It was originally built in 1982, and that's a picture of it there in Australia as a manufactured from a kit of parts. But in order to make it into, so these slides are flicking very sensitively through, build it into an airshow aircraft or something used for aerial entertainment, which is what you want to see with noise and smoke and unusual manoeuvres. It requires a certain degree of modification. So immediately, as soon as I bought the aeroplane in 2012, put it into the hangar, having flown it back to Bidford, and started taking it apart, put in 5 modification applications to the Light Aviation Authority. And really, I didn't know whether we were going to get permission to do all this stuff, but basically I had to get on with it. So I had a winter to try and get it ready for the next airshow season. So we started by looking at the cowling, and then there we go. It's moving slowly for some reason. So you can see, basically pulled the whole aeroplane apart, took the prop off, got it back to MT, and took all the bits back to my garage, my shed. Took it all apart, modified all the instruments. The engine went away for overhaul and modification to increase the horsepower. And you can just really, I'm just showing you these photographs really, so you get a feel for the amount of work involved. And it's not just the one change that makes all the difference. It's the very many small incremental changes that go into make it into such a great aeroplane. Now, I haven't all just made the stuff as I've gone along. I've had a lot of help, particularly from people in America who have been doing this maybe for 20 or 30 years, longer than I have. And so I was very fortunate to bump into or through contacts got an engineer called Eddie Salmon, who used to be chief engineer at Aviat and was Curtis Pitts, the designer of the pits, his right-hand man. And so what he doesn't know about the pits is not worth knowing. So he was very helpful in advising me what I should and shouldn't do. But basically, we rebuilt the cowlings, we put titanium undercarriage on it, mounted on the firewalls. I built more streamlined sort of induction systems and air outlets. This is just building a section at the bottom of the fuselage. And eventually we ended up with, you can see on the left-hand side is the original engine installation. On the right-hand side, what it looks like, it's becoming a hot rod biplane, and that's the key to the aircraft, is the amount of power it has, plus all the other small modifications we made to the flying surfaces. On subject of modifications, just clicking through. Okay, so that's where we were. October 12, basically we had the basic aeroplane. May 13, over that winter, I added all the modifications, or the airplane doesn't look that different, but basically we did increase its performance. It was 60 pounds lighter. We'd reduced the cooling drag. It had a very big and impressive smoke system. It's not particularly designed for competition aerobatics. That's more left to the monoplanes nowadays. But really striving to build a product that's good for aerial entertainment. And all these changes are closely regulated by our CAA and the LAA. So you can't just go and chop something up and bolt it on. So that was a challenge. And, I'm pleased that well, this is me with the mouse. I can't see the next slides coming up, so I do apologise. Am I still there, Steve? Just checking in.
Yeah, no, you're fine, mate. You're good.
Still
okay.
good.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so yeah, in 2013-14, we had a good product, and we started to push the boundaries in terms of the authorizations that we had with the authorities. And yeah, during this whole period, I've been nagging people, trying to get a sponsor for the aeroplane, because it was all quite a big financial burden on myself, and the stress that came through my wife in terms of the amount of money that was going in the whole project. So I still had a lot of debt, and more modifications in the pipeline. And then on March the 7th, 2014, I did have a video of the incident, but I won't show it, because I think this is recorded. I only really want it for the audience. Needless to say, I picked the airplane up 7th of March 2014 and taking it to Gloucester for some pre-season practice. And on touchdown, one of the brakes failed. This was having spent all winter modifying it. And on touchdown, one of the brakes failed. And for those of you that know about pits, if you don't have any brakes, you can't steer the thing on the runway. And it went up the runway, hit a runway light, and it nosed over. And basically, the airplane was written off. I'm not going to play that because it's going to be recorded. So I can show you the damage. So basically, the prop the airplane went over on its nose. It bent the gear. The prop went out. The prop broke and smashed. And I guess I learned about insurance, insuring airplanes and that, because the airplane was insured for a modest amount, but it didn't reflect the amount of time, effort, and money that I put into the project so far. Unfortunately, apologise, it keeps flicking backwards and forwards. Unfortunately, it broke 2 spars in the lower left wing, and having discussed it with Aviat, basically they wanted like $30,000 to build a new wing, and it was going to take several months for it to come. And I was discussing this with my wife, and obviously I was in a quite a low place, because it was the first year I'd actually had, I think, Yeovilton, Cosford, a lot of air shows had booked me, and I was really excited. But obviously it didn't look like I was going to make it. And I'd seen an aeroplane in Bulgaria on the internet, which didn't have a certificate of airworthiness, but it was the same pits. And I had this wacky plan that basically I'd go and buy this aeroplane and use the wing on my aeroplane. So this is pretty much why I married my wife, because We weren't married at that time. Obviously, it was in a fairly low place. I'd found this aeroplane, and she said, "Well, yeah, let's do that. You're better off going to get another aeroplane, get the wing off that, rather than paying like $35,000 to Aviat in America for something that might come in 2 or 3 months." So we got a trailer and a big vehicle, and just blindly set off across the channel. And I had like 4 days to do this in. Drove to, I think, 1,700 miles down to just the other side of Sofia in Bulgaria. And we were stopped by all sorts of issues, problems, police, going through Serbia with spy planes because it's a communist country. Anyway, we went there. We picked the plane up. I nearly gave up because at one point they'd promised they were going to help us dismantle the airplane, but it all got very stressful. We slept in the hangar in freezing conditions. Anyway, I won't dwell on all of that too much, but that's pretty much why I married my wife in the end. She seemed like she could hang in there at the right time. So having got this airplane back, I'd also ordered 2 spars from Aviat, and they said they would take several months to come, but they came in pretty quick order. So at that point, having got the other airplane, the spars had come. I decided to repair the lower left wing. So basically, these are just photographs of us rebuilding the lower left wing. Engine back from overhaul, airplane going back together, and 2 months later, we were back in business. So over the 2 months, the airplane having been written off, I rebuilt it, and we got it flying again for the 2014 airshow season, which is obviously a great relief to me because I could. I could stick to my commitments, and the whole point of doing this. So, 2014, I'm gassing on. I should really have said at the start, if anyone's got any questions, then feel free to butt in. But I'll get this bit of the story out of the way, and then we can have a break, some questions, and we can talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so 2014, we had our full airshow season. This is more for the engineers amongst you. I just want to briefly touch on what's involved with any modification process. So I mentioned it's all the small changes that make a big difference to the airplane. So here you see a view of us putting an aerodynamic rudder on it, or aerodynamic counterbalance rudder, which basically is quite straightforward to make. And once it's made, it all has to be. I'm just going to flick back to this. This is where Eddie Salmon, the American design engineer, stress engineer, comes into play, because without his help and his reporting and all that he agreed to do, none of this would have been possible. I do know other people now that can do this sort of work, but basically, rudder was the simple one. But if you take, for example, once the rudder is built, I have to test fly it. Then I have to go and get someone else to test fly it and make sure it all handles and behaves properly. And then we write a report, submit it to the LAA, and they give it final approval. So I just want to briefly touch on who is Eddie Salmon. Now, he's a really, really nice chap, and obviously very, very clever. And during this whole process, I agreed to pay him some money to help me get all these modifications through the authorities. He sent me this picture. Now some of you might recognize it. He said to me over the phone conversation, "Hey, we got this great plan. I've got 2 Yak 55s, and we're going to bolt them together, and then we're going to strap a jet engine on the bottom." And obviously, I thought, yeah, okay. So he sent me this cartoon picture, and I thought, yeah, okay, I do believe you, Eddie, but I'll believe it when I see it. And then, literally a year later, there it is. So Eddie is infamous in America for helping a lot of the airshow guys, and really, without him and everything he's done for me, we wouldn't have the airshow product that I fly. So he's the designer of the Jet Wacko, which you see there, and also the Yak 110, plus all manner of other things. Now I'm going to flick through the next few slides quickly, because really I don't particularly want them out there. and it's not really part of this presentation, but if there's any plane spotters amongst you, I'll flick it up for a couple of seconds, and I'll flick through them quite quickly. I won't let you know which country it's in, but if you can just tell me, what you think it is, I'll. Okay, so that's. I don't really want to show any more than that, but I'm guessing I can't see any screens or what people are saying. But have you got any idea what that was, Tom?
I think it's we got people people now putting their answers in there. Is of course the SR-71 Blackbird.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and who would think that in America on the experimental aviation setup you could build an SR-71 half scale, so it's 55 feet long. It's got 2 Williams jet engines powering it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a long way off completion, but that's what you can do in other countries. And I'm not knocking the United Kingdom, but we are quite highly regulated here. And if we didn't have innovation and doing things without a small element of risk, then in many walks of life we would never progress. For example, the moon landing. If they were to undertake those ventures now, I don't think it would be possible the way we risk assess things nowadays. Anyway, that's just briefly who Eddie is, and part of one of these conversations in about 2015. I saw the jet whacker. I said, "Oh, could we put some jets on my pits?" And he said, "Well, yeah, we could do that in a weekend." and I believe in America you probably could, but that was in 2015. I guess we're 5-7 years on now. So this was the initial design concept. There were going to be 3 turbojets strapped to the bottom, and the whole point of the jet pits is to have an aeroplane with more thrust than weight. So you need at least a 1.1 to 1 power to weight ratio in order to make it into the sort of airplane that you'd have at an air show. So you can literally hover it in the vertical. I briefly mentioned that. I'm going to flick through a few slides now, just the requirements in order to get a modification through, the highs and the lows of it. So this is, for example, me building a new rudder and tailplane. And in order to put that on an airplane, Eddie would have to calculate all the design loads for the aircraft for a variety of different weights and center of gravities. He would then calculate the loads on the tailplane, the horizontal stabilizer. Because the loads on the tailplanes had changed, he would then have to look at the fuselage truss and analyze all the components in the fuselage truss for the extra loads on the back of the fuselage, and then actually analyze the tailplane itself using finite element analysis techniques. Because all the loads on the tailplane and the elevator have changed, he then has to analyze all the control systems to make sure that there's no the new loads aren't going to overload the system. And so you eventually end up with another small incremental change. But I will put this up because once you make the change, sorry, my PowerPoint presentation is going haywire. Sorry about that. It keeps flicking back and forth. Once you make the change, you then have to test fly it. And one of the things you need to be aware of and test fly for is what's called flutter. And I'm just going to flick through. So this is these things don't always work, and obviously we test fly them very, very gingerly and steadily. Is that playing okay, Tom?
Yeah, that's playing fine.
So you see, we're trying to, as we get towards VNE, we need to fly for kind of VNE presentation. You'll see the whole of the back of the fuselage start to twist and shake. You'll see the tailplane. That's what you call asymmetric flutter. And needless to say, that modification didn't work. And this is another brief shot of me, my face of anxiety. Anyway, so I show you that because basically sometimes you make changes and they don't work, and this most definitely didn't work, and actually, it had a very detrimental effect on the aircraft. But it was soon resolved by chopping the tailplane up again in my shed and putting aerodynamic and mass balance on it, and then basically the tailplane works very well. But I just added that in. It just shows you some of the work going on in the background. So 2014, the aeroplane was becoming a good aerial entertainer, and we had plenty of exposure, but it's still self-funded, but and quite a burden on me financially. And I was still trying to get a sponsor. So Mirko Pecorari of Aircraft Studio Design, he'd helped me from the start with my website and the journey I was on. He just said in Italian and English, basically, he said, "I have an idea, just paint it red." So I didn't know what was coming around the corner. So he recovered the rear fuselage, repainted the wings, and the next thing you know, he sent me this design, which I'm sure you all recognise.
Of course, yeah.
But it's just an amazing design. I was a bit skeptical at first because it is so very, very bold and very, very different. But it went down well. This was at the RF Cosford press launch in 2015. And new clothes. People love the scheme, really. And I think that's been part of my story. And I'm forever thankful for Mirko. Fantastic designer. Making that aeroplane looks so good with the Union Jack adorned on it. 2015, was privileged to be able to go to the Middle East, and you'll see a variety of. I'm not going to dwell on sponsors' logos because a lot of people ask you to do something, they don't give you any money, and then it's quite stressful trying to go down the sponsorship route. But so we had a couple of watch manufacturers on, and basically it was it's a slightly amusing story because the whole air show was sponsored by another well-known watch manufacturer, Breitling, and they saw the watch manufacturer that I had on the aeroplane as a big competitor, and we were set up outside the Breitling air-conditioned tent, selling our T-shirts and stuff like that, and it didn't go down too well. And the bottom line is, basically, eventually, the first watch manufacturer hadn't given me any money, and the people sponsoring the air show said, "Look, you can't." They were running it as a bit of a competition. You can't win any prizes or anything like that with those logos on, because obviously it's like the Coke and the Pepsi story. So I said, "Would it help if we took them off?" And he said, "Yeah, it would." So because I hadn't been paid anything, I took them all off, and and then these are just some photographs of me and my family, basically, with the aeroplane with no logos. And there's Mr. Breitling looking very happy with his result. Although we didn't ever get any sponsorship from Breitling, but it doesn't matter. It's just part of the story. After that air show, I wouldn't say conned, but I was asked to go and open Ferrari World roller coaster ride. And for this, I had to go and find somewhere for the aeroplane to go. And I was a bit wet behind the ears. I didn't really understand that there was no general aviation in the Middle East. And from LA, I'd been assured that by somebody, he obviously didn't know what he was talking about, that it'd be fine to fly up to Ras Al Khaimah and park it there for a couple of months. And I did that. On the way up there, Abu Dhabi Control said to me, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Well, flight planned up to Ras Al Khaimah." And they said, you can't land at Ras Al Khaimah. What are you going to do? And basically, it's going backwards and forwards. I said, "Okay, I'll divert to Sharjah." I mean, we didn't really have great maps. I had my iPhone navigating up there, and eventually said, "Oh, they'll accept you now." When I landed at Ras Al Khaimah, which is a bit like landing at Birmingham International Airport, basically they arrested me and said, "You're going to be fined. You shouldn't have landed here." So anyway, with lots of English sort of diplomatic approach and smoothing things over, eventually they agreed that we could stay there and operate out of there. Ferrari World wanted the airplane rebranded, so we rebranded it. We raced it down the runway, and eventually had to fly it down to Abu Dhabi itself, where Ferrari World. That's a picture out of my airplane. They wanted us to race a Formula One driver down the high street. I don't know if this is going to work. I've got a little. I don't know if this will work if I clip on this. Will it? It might. Can you still see that?
Can still see that, yeah.
Okay, this is the funny story about the way things are in the Middle East, and I don't know if any of you have ever been there. By the way, at this point, my airplane had been stuck in Abu Dhabi for a couple of months, and unbeknown to me, I'd racked up £17,000 worth of hangar fees. Okay, and I hadn't been paid any money for this at all at the moment, and some young lady was just saying, "Don't worry, everything will be okay." I was obviously a bit stressed that my airplane was stuck in Birmingham International Airport, being hangared at great expense, and not able to get it out. But anyway, it worked out okay in the end. So we flew it down to Abu Dhabi, and they blocked off all the roads with the police. But there's about 4 different police forces in Abu Dhabi. And so they'd flown a Formula One driver over to drive this Ferrari, and he had a radio, and on his number plates, he basically had Ferrari World. And basically, they'd blocked off all the entrances and exits to the road, but they'd omitted to block a couple off. And when the guy was going back, I was airborne, holding over just to, I think, just off the display area, and I was kind of running out of fuel, and I was asking Dave Orton from TSA, what's going on. He said, there's a bit of a problem. Basically, the Ferrari driver had driven up the road with his radio, but he'd then been stopped by the police because the police hadn't been informed. and basically he was being asked for his driving license, and why was he driving without a number plate on his car.
Oh no.
So yeah, and meanwhile I'm trying to come and do this fly past with him. Anyway, this is a very, very brief clip of what they wanted us to do: fly down a street full of lampposts, race this Ferrari. You probably can't hear the audio, can you, Tom?
No.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
He's taken himself out. I think he didn't mean to do that. I don't think. He will be back.
Yeah, absolutely fascinated up until that point. This is probably a good chance to read some comments and say hello to people in the meantime.
It is a good opportunity indeed. So we'll say hello to people. I know normally we do that first thing, but we kind of wanted to get into Rich's story. So let's say hello to... hang on a minute. Let me change it back to there. All right, so we got Transatlantic Alison saying, "Evening, lovely people," in my computer. So evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thank you for
Clive Everly, who says, "Good evening, all Vision International, of course, they're there saying, good evening, everyone."
Good evening to you.
Jack Rolls, Hydra APUs, he's here. He says, "Good evening, everybody."
Evening, Jack, mate.
Got, of course, our brand new moderator, Samuel Taylor Ackroyd. He's in there keeping an eye on everything. So evening to you, Jim Gemmell. Good evening to you. We'll just run through names. Martin Waldridge says hello.
Evening.
Let's have a look and see who else we got here. VK Rana is there. Rich is now back. He didn't mean to do that.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's the problem with having you seeing the whole screen. I shut the damn thing down. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I think you probably closed the whole thing down, and we were like, "Oh, he's gone."
Anyways,
yes.
3, 2, 1, back in the room.
Yep, everyone's all good.
Yeah.
Where did we get to? I escaped. I eventually escaped from Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, so we just seen the clip of the street race.
Okay, yeah. So eventually escaped from Abu Dhabi with not too many fines, but again, it took my good lady wife to actually. We were trying to get the airplane out without thousands of pounds worth of fines and bribes and stuff like that. She had to start crying again to gain the sympathy of the young men, the young men in the who are in charge of customs and immigrations. Anyway, pleased to say that in 2016 we were chosen to display at Farnborough, which is another great honour for me, but still with no major sponsor. So up until this point, no major sponsor, and then suddenly, out of the blue, I just have a sip of my drink. Excuse me. Up until now, I spend most evenings emailing CEOs of companies saying, "Hey, I've got this great airplane. We do lots of air shows. Can you sponsor it?" But nothing had come. And then suddenly, someone called me and said, "Hey, Rich, I hear you've got a biplane. We've got a balloon. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm echoing. Am I, Steve?
We can hear you.
Yeah, no,
Okay, that's fine. That's
You'll
fine.
need to share your screen again if you're doing your PowerPoint.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, because we haven't got that on the screen.
Okay, stand by.
That's all right.
We
will get to everyone's comments shortly.
Is that better?
Yeah, I've got it on there now.
Okay.
So if you want to, full screen it.
You can see we practiced it, didn't we?
Well-oiled machine, I think.
Okay, so that's just that was Farnborough. So Chris Woodward, CEO of Banana, he rang me out of the blue and said, "Hey, we hear you've got a biplane. We might be interested in sponsoring it." I said, "Oh, when should I come and give you the presentation?" And he said, "Oh, what do you mean? I'll come up this afternoon and look at it." So literally, he met me at Gloucester. Chris and Roger, the owners of the company. I showed them it. I told them about it. I explained to them why it was a bit different. I took off, flew down the runway sideways, but they said, "Wow, that's great. Let's do it." So the next challenge I had was trying to, keep Chris happy because he wanted some sort of stunt. So he said, "Oh, we got a balloon. Why don't you fly between two balloons strung together?" So we roped two balloons together and did a knife edge pass between them. And
fantastic!
I've got a bit of a clip here, I think, if I can play it. Yeah. So Chris, I think Roger was in one basket and Chris was in the other basket. And actually, I think Chris actually took this slow motion of us cutting the ribbon as we flew through the two balloons.
Oh yeah, check that out.
Next. Yeah, okay, and so that was 2015, and what a great company to be associated with. They really have embraced, what I do. Unfortunately, Chris sometimes asks, he said, "Well, what else can we do? We've got to do some more stunts. Can you fly under because they're based in Bristol, can you fly under the Clifton Suspension Bridge?" And I just said, "Look, I'm doing this I love doing this. I could do that, but I would only do it once because then I wouldn't have a license after that." So they've been happy with what we've delivered in terms of brand exposure. We've had model airplane companies. There's a picture top left there of model airplane company wanted to copy the color scheme, and we've now actually built that airplane, and we'll have it displaying for model aircraft shows as well. And we've got some great photographs. We've taken the we've flown the airplane down to Gibraltar for National Day, which in a pits is quite an adventure. It took me 2 days to fly it down there. It only does like 120 miles an hour. It's like driving a car, and getting over the Pyrenees and all the plains of Spain.
Sorry, just quickly, what sort of range would it have on a trip like that?
Typically about 220 miles is the range of my airplane. So it's about 800 miles, 1,000 miles, nautical miles down there. So it's like, it's at least 5 flights. The trouble is when you get to Gibraltar, for those of you in the aviation world, there's a big danger area up to 31,000 feet, right in front around the Alicante area. Not Alicante, around Sota Grande area. Yeah, that's it. Basically, you can't fly directly into Gibraltar. You have to basically go across to Tunisia and then fly down the strait. So it's not a straightforward flight in a sort of GA airplane. But it all worked out well, and it's another learning experience for myself. Basically, the big plan with the red airplane was to fully modify the wings, and I'd started building another set of wings in about 2000 and I can't remember, 15 or 16. And these are a set of wings. One set is flying in America, which sort of totally revolutionary. When I started building them, I didn't really. They hadn't been test flown. I just started building them because Eddie thought they'd be good, and he would then again have to do all the structural analysis for them to get them approved in this country. But I started building them, and it was pretty much a 4-year build. Halfway through building them, I thought, well, what am I going to do with the old wings? I decided actually I'll build another airplane. So that's a picture of the way the fuselage came from the factory at Aviat. I picked it up from Leicester. I think it came in a container. And these are just, I'm going to flick through these quite quickly, just to give you a feel for the amount of work involved in building another airplane. So I've never built a wooden airplane before, but it's pretty straightforward. You get sent a load of these jigs, and it's like building a model airplane. I built plenty of model airplanes in my earlier years. Basically, gluing a load of bits of wood together to make a rib, and once you've made all the ribs, you put them on the spars, and it's amazing how quickly a wing comes together. But this wing is slightly more complicated because it has curved leading edges, and just bending all that plywood and gluing it all together is just a tremendous amount of work. The wings are fantastic and they fly fantastically. I'm not too sure if I've got it in me to build another set, and I recommend to anyone building an aeroplane. All you need is a bit of patience and a lot of time. And when I look through these photographs, it keeps flicking quite quickly. From skinning the fuselages, building all these. My PowerPoint presentation going haywire. Making molds for the cowling, new carbon cowling, propellers, engines, different type of canopy. It's just, it is just endless. This airplane has modified cylinders, AX50 cylinders they're called, which is an experimental cylinder which produce incredible power. And it was halfway through the building of this one that I said to Eddie, should we put some jet engines on it? He said, yeah, let's do it. So this is basically, they're mounted. There's a big scaffold pole welded into the middle of the fuselage, and these jet turbines just plug on the side. So this is just the build process. This is rigging it for the first time, and eventually you end up with a plane. But I don't think I'll be building another one because there's a lot of parts in that plane. But this is a fantastic aeroplane, and I'll talk a bit more about where we are with it and the jet turbines. I know it's called the jet pits. Everyone keeps taking the mickey out of me. I guess I can't swear on this production, but you talk about it, but where is it? But I do believe it will happen. I'll give you an update at the end. It's just been a very long and drawn out process, and I haven't given up. But this is where we are now. You'll notice I have a new sponsor on there. That's not because Banana quit. Banana's company is bought by another company called Sabio, and they really like the product, and we get on very well. It's a much bigger organization. They have a lot of corporate responsibility, and I hope I'm going to deliver that for them through all these fantastic photographs that we get. And I'm just flicking through some of these because part of this presentation, I'd like to really commend and say thank you to a lot of you guys, because the airshow circuit, what goes around comes around. Basically, we're very dependent upon all these fantastic images that you take, these podcasts you deliver, for our survival, and particularly promoting, sponsors that we might have on our airplanes, to help finance them, because we're not the military, we are individuals trying to do what we're passionate about. Obviously, it's not. I don't think you make money out of this sort of thing, but you make ends meet, and certainly it's good to have the support of my new sponsor. And what over here, yeah, they're very involved with it, and they spent a lot of time in Abingdon making a great video, which you can't see the you can't see the okay, yep. So here we got the model, and there's John Whiten, who is a very, very capable aeronautical engineer and designer, and he's designed I'll talk about later, the containment nacelles on my aeroplane. But he's also a great aero modeler, and he'll be displaying the model aircraft version. Obviously, we've got to get the branding changed on that now. Well, I just chucked these slides in. Really, basically the importance of event organisers, enthusiasts, photographers, people that are involved with the multimedia platforms like yourselves, Tom and Steve. Yeah, I think everyone in the airshow industry does appreciate everything you guys do, and I hope that it might not always come across that we do appreciate it, but certainly without all those photographers taking all those photographs, we wouldn't be able to deliver for our sponsors. And in terms of delivering for my sponsor, basically, with a 2 or 3 channel, we're involved with education, but the whole point of air shows is to inspire a future generation of engineers, mathematicians, into the STEM type subjects, and that's close to my sponsor's heart, close to Savio's heart. And we're also going to be working on some greener technology. I know it doesn't sound very green to have an 8.5 litre biplane smashing through the sky, but the whole point of this, in terms of making the world greener, is involving our young scientists, getting them involved, and aspiring to deliver on those fronts. But we've also got some newer engine technology, which I'm hoping to incorporate in one of my airshow aircraft next season. So we've got a new development water cooled engine, which burns a lot more efficiently, and therefore we can claim it's a lot greener.
Yeah, that's it.
This is sorry that I put that photograph up. Really, just it's the IT. But Bournemouth Air Festival. Just looking on the left hand side of the slide there, they have over their weekend generally about 1 million people go through. On their big days, they get nearly 500,000 people, and it's all those people taking photographs, enjoying the air show, that will help us get sponsors. And without those sponsors, we wouldn't have the sort of airshow products that we're trying to develop and entertain you guys. And it's all about our future engineers. At the end of the day, this is a photo taken at one of the Abingdon air shows. Am I allowed one shout out?
Yeah, you can have as many as you like, either now or at the end of the show. Yeah, go for it.
I don't know why this is going haywire. This PowerPoint. I just threw this in here because I've noticed recently on Facebook, and what a great job the organisers do. But unfortunately, I won't be able to be at the Towmouth Air Show. But all these air shows, it costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to put these on, and they do it to attract people to their resorts, improve revenue in resort, and occupy their hotels, and inspire our future generation. Now, I just saw this the other day on Facebook. On the GoFundMe. It's not GoFundMe as in Rich Goodwin Air Shows. Basically, Teignmouth have been fortunate. They've got the red arrows, they've got them booked, but it takes a lot of money to put these things on. In terms of, it's not just a question of opening up car parks. There's a whole massive infrastructure that goes with running a big air show like this, and they need some money. And I've watched them fundraising. through various means on Facebook, and they were like £20,000 short. They put this up the other day, and suddenly, they're going to get close to their goal. And so I'd ask, even if it's a couple of quid, every bit will help. So if you can support that air show, I'd really appreciate it. Don't send any money to me. I don't know what this. Oh,
there is a very quick question actually. I wouldn't mind asking you, which is from Clive Everly, which is, what is the maximum positive and negative G imposed or limited on these aircraft frames? And I suppose further to that, what are they kind of stress tested to, these airframes?
Well, all the for a pit, it's certified +6, -6, and any analysis that's done is done to 1.5 times that, so it's done to +9, -9. There's always a safety factor in when you submit analysis to get approval for changes. So that answers your question. And I'm not, the guys in America, they'll fly their airplanes much harder than that. The wing that I built is much stronger than the original Pitts wing, but by about 20%. So there's extra margins of safety in that. And a lot of people ask me, how do you feel about flying an airplane to those limits that you built? And I said, well, I feel quite confident because I know what's in that airplane. I built it. It's not like I bought an airplane that's from somebody else, that someone else has bought. So does that answer the question? I'll play this video. I'm
Go for it.
more. So this is a video that my new sponsor made from the Abingdon Air Show. It's a very short clip. It does have music that goes with it, but you because of the streaming capability, you won't be able to see it. I'll just briefly play it.
So just while it's playing, if anyone does have a question for Rich, do get them into the chat, because we're going to spend sort of the last half hour of the show getting your questions to him. So if you've got any questions you want to know about his planes or about him, get them into the chat now.
Right, I can escape. So let me. How do I get rid of my screen? If you can you de-share me, so it's just me.
I've de-shared you. You're all good.
Okay. So really, I said the main points out of what I've talked about is really the development of the aeroplane, the ups and downs of it in terms of it's not always successful, the things that we try. I've even had to rebuild the aeroplane at some point. But I guess I'm a bit addicted to it and passionate about it. And I hope that rubs off a bit on some of the viewers. And I would say, don't leave it till you're pushing at worms. If you want to have a go at something in life, just get on and do it. And I'm not saying that I'm making a great job of it. I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it. And hopefully I'll be doing it for a few years to come. And I'll see this Jet Pitts project to its fruition, which I think we're getting quite close, which I'll update you on in a minute.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've seen a few comments pop up, but when I've seen you at Bournemouth Air Show, it's phenomenal. Like the kind of like your airmanship is unbelievable. The control you've got on the plane and that, and like I'm disorientated watching you, so I can't imagine what it's like inside the cockpit.
A lot of people say to me, how do you do that? How does your body do it? Well, basically, if you do it enough, you'll get used to it. It's like anything; it's practice. And so normally I don't really fly much over the winter, at the beginning of the air show season. So really from a month ago till now, and seriously next few weeks, the first time I get in the airplane and go and do any aerobatics again, I'll feel a bit nauseous, and I'll land and I'll think, why am I doing this? Because it really has a negative impact on how you feel about flying. But you really just, after a few flights, you're back into it. So it's nothing that you can't make your body do. And in terms of the orientation aspects, it's just something you get used to, and with practice, you'll get better at it. And when I look back at when I started, I think, I look at the way I was displaying and the sort of things I was doing. I think I've improved since then. I've also think I got a bit wiser as well, because it's not all about, there's different rules and regulations in different countries. We have rules and regulations in this country, and it's important that we stick to them. And the rules and regulations are there for primarily for the safety of the crowd, and secondly for the safety of your own personal safety. Because it's very easy when you get in an aeroplane or get you on your motorbike or your fast car to put those blinkers on and get tunnel vision and just get obsessed by the need for speed or doing something that makes your juices flow in terms of adrenaline. But it's really important that you've got this second person sitting on your shoulder saying, is that really such a good idea? Should you really be doing that now? Now, I think that person has got a bit better at telling me to do that as I got a bit older and matured a bit as a display pilot. We all make mistakes, and we need to minimize those mistakes. And I've learned a lot about human factors and how to try and minimize mistakes and how to prepare and all that sort of stuff. I'm no better at it than anyone else. It's just it's a learning curve all the way. I can't remember where we were going on that.
No, that's why. Yeah, no, like you say, the experience and whatever, and it, like we say, it is a thrill to see you do your stuff, especially like the is it the vertical climb, and it almost appears to sort of be hovering as it sort of reaches the ceiling of what it can be doing.
The aeroplane weighs like 1,600 pounds, and it won't be able to hover. We only have like 1,000 pounds of the thrust, and obviously it appears that you can start to hover because you're flying at 180 miles an hour and you put up into the vertical and you go up a long way until you stop, and then you'll come backwards. For this aeroplane, because of the torque of the engine and the power it has and the airflow of the flying surfaces, it means that it does what's called a torque roll quite well. So the aeroplane is rolling with the torque of the engine when it becomes stationary at the apex, and it actually will fly backwards, probably at about 50 miles an hour, until it all becomes too unstable to fly backwards, and then it just falls out. But the whole point of putting the jet engines on, which I'll talk about later, is that we'll have a total thrust of about 1,700 pounds of thrust. So we'll have actually more thrust than weight. So the aeroplane should, in theory, be able to climb into the vertical and then stop and then go up again. But,
Oh, wow.
A lot of people ask me, well, what will you be able to do with that aeroplane? Well, we don't really know yet because no one's flown it. We can only sort of look at what other aeroplanes similar to that, like the Jet Wacko, have been able to do. One thing I for sure is that it's very, very noisy. I think when I've been doing ground runs and test runs, it sets all the car alarms off in the car park. It's kind of crazy, but I'm sure there'll be a regulation soon that says actually you can't fly that because it's too noisy. But we'll see. Yeah, go on then. I can't read all those questions.
Peter Brown says, will we still see E-Wiz going forwards, or have you fully transferred over to G-Pit now? J-Pit.
Okay. So the airplanes are very different to fly. So the blue airplane has got the mods to take the jet engines, but obviously I'm flying it without the jet engines. But it has more power, and it has that fantastic wing that Eddie designed, and it's got a much better roll rate. So it's nicer to fly, and its low speed handling is much better because it's got more wing area. So I think it's got a few more tricks up its sleeve. I will still be flying G-Wiz. We have it as a spare, and also with Jubilee Weekend coming up, I anticipate probably using it down at Torbay for at least one display. But they're very different aeroplanes to fly because of the roll rate. So you have to be a bit cautious when you jump from one to the other. You need to go and have a practice in the one that you're going to display before you go and display it. That's all I'd say. But yeah, I mean, G-Wiz, it's iconic, that color scheme, and it is such a great color scheme. I almost wish I'd done them both the same, but we have to change a bit sometimes.
Yeah, it's a stunning, stunning livery. Yeah. So there's one British Airways Airbus 380 from Frankfurt. Do you ever come to Herne Bay Airshow before? Have you ever been to Herne Bay Airshow?
Isn't that Bournemouth? Is
Um,
Herne? Is Herne?
well, no, I thought Herne Bay was sort of Devon way. I could be wrong. Tom will maybe know better than me. He lives that way.
Don't ask me. The only ones that you've got down here are still like Torbay,
Yeah.
Yeovilton as well, but that's off this year.
No, we do. We do. We've got a bit. We've got a busy airshow calendar. It
Yeah.
starts. It starts this weekend with the Armchair Airshow, which is filmed live, and there'll be lots of really interesting chat and presentations going on. So thoroughly recommend. And obviously, I'd ask you again to donate a small bit if you go and watch it, because Airability is a fantastic cause. That's on the 28th and 29th. If anyone lives in the Midlands, then we've got a very small air show at Wings and Wheels at Bidford. It's completely free. And there's just 3 air show acts. We've got a bird dog, a dragon rapide, and I'll be displaying the pits. But it's very informal. It's just buckets for a donation, but all money goes to a local charity. And then we're into the major air shows. So we've got, I think it's Torbay. I think I'll be at most of the seaside ones this year. Clacton, Eastbourne, Bournemouth. I'm really proud to be back at RAF Cosford. I've got it all on my calendar. And for those of you who haven't checked out my website, I've recently redone my website. So, Herne Bay's in Kent. Sorry about
There
that.
you go. There you go. It's in Kent.
I didn't know if there's an air show there. I'll go there. I mean, but I haven't. No, I haven't displayed at Herne Bay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. So the confusion is that Bournemouth Airport, for those who don't know, is also
It's
known as Herne Airport.
Yes, it is.
So
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Got a question from Owen, who is asking, will you be flying? There's a lot of questions like this, so we'll get to the schedule shortly, but will you be flying at the Southport Air Show this year?
I have to be a bit careful about what I say and what I don't say, because a lot of the air shows like to sort of announce, and they make a thing of announcing because they're trying to draw in, customers, sell tickets and stuff like that. I hope so. I've displayed there before, and it's a great venue, as are all the air show, the seaside air shows. But as soon as they announce it, or I get informed that I'm doing it, and they're happy to announce it, then I'll update the website. I've got an air shows 2022 on the website now, and the website's been updated with a slightly new look, and we're going to have a few other pages on there, some innovation pages, just to let you know what we're doing with we're actually going to be putting a water-cooled engine into one of the aeroplanes next season, which is much more efficient in terms of the specific fuel consumption. So that's sort of trying to tick a green box. We already run on unleaded fuel with the Blue aeroplane. Unlike a lot of airplane engines, they have to use leaded fuel, but we already run on unleaded fuel. So I hope to be at Southport is the answer to your question.
We'll put it down as a maybe.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a reasonable chance.
Reasonable chance. Fantastic.
When you do these air shows like Bournemouth or whatever, it's a 3-day event. Do you get an opportunity to look at the other aircraft on the ground, like the more unique stuff, or is it not something that you really sort of?
I always get to look at the other airplanes, talk to the other pilots, and always really interested in what they're flying. And there's just some amazing. You don't always have that much time, but normally parked on the ramp at Bournemouth, there's some very, very interesting aeroplanes. Vampires spring to mind from Norway. Kenny displays the Vampire. That's always really nice to see. It's unbelievable that it's like made of plywood at the front. Same as my own. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's molded plywood, like the Mosquito. But I'll stand to be corrected.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'd say, obviously, someone who obviously knows a bit about your background, Transatlantic Alison. just very briefly, then, do you still fly with TUI? Of course, who you flew with, and if so, what do they think?
No, I don't fly for TUI anymore because I retired in January to commit my sort of self to. I used to fly for TUI. I was a captain with flying the 757, and one thing I wanted to say at the beginning, actually, I meant to say is, how thankful I was for everything the RAF gave me in terms of, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I wasn't the most outgoing, confident individual, and I think the RAF gave me incredible training, both as a sort of officer and gentleman type rubbish, and also as a pilot. And I think without any of that skill set that they gave me, and during my short service commission, I don't think I'd have done half the things that I've done now. So I'm indebted to what they gave me, and also indebted to the career I had for 26 years with, albeit one charter airline, but in three different sets of clothes. So firstly, A2000, then First Choice, and then was it Britannia? It was Britannia, but I think it was TUI then. Fantastic airline to work for. Thoroughly recommend anyone who's going into there to try and work for them. But I just decided. I mean, I really enjoyed the job. I did, and I'm not that old, but I'm getting a bit old, and I want to live life. I enjoyed not doing. We didn't work that much during COVID. I'm a very busy person, and when I look at what I've been doing on the airshow circuit and building aeroplanes and stuff like that, and what my wife's had to put up with, I sometimes wonder actually how did I actually have an airline job as well, a full-time airline job. So now life it seems equally as busy, but I can devote and concentrate more on the airshow stuff, try and get this jet pits thing going, and see where we end up. But the trouble with I'm not going to get into pensions and retirement, but you save money through life, and then you've got to spend it, and you've got to guess when you're going to die. Well, who knows when? But I reckon if I can get through the next 10 years, then I'd have had a good time.
There's a funny little comment here from Martin Waldridge, of course, relation to Steve, who says, I'd find it reassuring that my holiday flight captain knows how to barrel roll, loop the loop, and fly between balloons.
Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, so TUI were, when I was working for TUI, I didn't, they were very, very separate. In the airlines, we got that job, flight trail limitations and all that stuff. And so I would never say that I was an airline pilot and stuff like that, because basically, it's a hard line for them to draw. Do you want some maniac up there who's going to do flick rolls and loops with passengers on board? Well, I mean, that's clearly not the case. But I think having good airplane handling skills is a benefit for any airline pilot, because you don't really know what's around the corner. I mean, look at Sullinger having to land on the Hudson. Any bit of sort of manual flying type skills that you've got, or you can go back to when it all goes badly wrong, I think it would be helpful. It doesn't happen very often now, and that's why maybe we don't need to do all sort of manual flying training that we used to do in the old days. That's a topic in itself, really.
Oh, fair play. Question from Rob Brown Plane Spotting, going back to obviously flying displays and stuff, and he asks, if you could do a fly past or a display with any Air Force display team, who would it be?
Well, there's only one Air Force display team, isn't there? The Red Arrows, I suppose. But yeah, I'd have to be going pretty fast, and they'd have to be going quite slow. It's obviously possible to. I've done some formation work with Mark Petrie, who flies the Strike Master, great airshow pilot, and he's got a great product. And it's great when we can get together occasionally and do the odd fly past, just to make things slightly different. And I do love formation flying. I take my hats off to the formation teams out there, both military and civil, because I don't think really people appreciate. I mean, I can fly formation. I did it in the Air Force, but formation aerobatics and the guys like the Ravens, the Red Arrows, the Blades, Mark Jeffries' lot. I can't remember the name. I've lost. But Mark and his team.
There are many out there.
Yeah.
There are, but the amount of practice those guys have to put in, and the skill that's required to fly formation is absolutely incredible. A lot of people said to me, "Well, you got the other airplane. Why don't you do a pairs act, this, that, and the other?" It's not that I don't. I think I could do that, but then you've got to get another person, and the amount of hours of practice required to, you can get up to a level that's competing with, the Ravens, the Global Stars, the Red Arrows is tremendous, and those guys have nailed it. And believe me, if you ever get a chance to go in an airplane and fly formation, you'll realise how very difficult it is, and how skillful those people are. The Red Arrows train non-stop, 6 months, non-stop, 3 trips a day to get to the level they're at. And I know all the other formation teams, they put the practice in, and I really enjoy watching the formation aerobatics.
Yeah,
I know how difficult it is.
Brilliant. In terms of sort of, this is just sort of going off of my sort of intrigue. Do you have an air show that is a particular favourite of yours that you sort of, once you have your schedule in your head as to what you get invited to, like you sort of almost like pump the air with your fist sort of thing and go, yes, I get to display there sort of thing.
I like to display at every air show.
Good answer. That's a good safe answer.
There's some. I mean, they're all incredibly well organised, particularly the big seaside ones. The pilots' notes. And particularly the ones organised by R5 and TSA Consulting. I mean, there's so much at stake if things go wrong. All the I's and all the T's are dotted and crossed, and we try and do our bit with the maintenance of the aeroplane, the practice, and delivering, being there on time. But yeah, there's some arenas which are really nice, and Torbay's really nice, Bournemouth's really nice, because they're fantastic arenas, and you can get so many people watching the show from a big flight line, and it's over the sea, so it's there's no obstacles to hit or avoid. So those sort of short shows are great. I mean, RAF Cosford in particular, it's great to be back at an RAF base, because traditionally a lot of those shows just invite the RAF, and obviously the RAF have plenty of money and they can practice and they produce some great shows. But when you're sort of independent and trying to make it work financially for yourself, it can be tricky sometimes. I must mention Sanacol. So if you get Sanacol, is just an amazing air show. That's in Belgium, and I'm really honoured to be invited and flying there this year. They just got the right. They seem to get the nice weather. They've got an amazing bar with sofas. You can pay like a 100 quid or whatever, go and drink all you want all day.
Oh wow!
And you ride on the flight line. It's just
my kind of air show.
It is a great atmosphere. The Channel Islands is really nice to go to as well and support them. So yeah, I mean, literally yesterday a guy rang me up and said, "Oh, I want to propose to my wife, and can you do a display for me?" I said, "Well, look, I can't charge you to do that. If you can organise to be on top of this hill on this day, I'll do a heart for you and stuff like that." So he basically proposed to his wife, and I drew a heart. And hats off to him. He's a doctor working at Worcester Hospital. It's nice to do things like that occasionally. It's not all driven by money and stuff like that. Making people happy, drawing smiley faces, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if anyone's got any requests,
well, that's the problem. A lot of people say, "Oh, can you come and do this, that, and the other?" And I always feel bad letting people down. And then say, "Well, it's going to cost you this much," and they say, "What? I can't afford that." And I said, "Well, yeah." It's like going back to the story when I was trying to get sponsors. First thing they give you as a watch manufacturer is, "Well, there you go. Here's a watch, Rich." And said, "Well, thanks." So have you got another 50 that I can put in my fuel tank? Because the airplanes don't run on watches. It's actually they cost money to run. But anyway, that's days gone by. Oh,
yeah.
Got a great new sponsor now, so that's good.
That's fantastic. So so pretty much just any air show is is a privilege for you to sort of attend, because you just get to show off the plane and the
Well,
skills.
yeah. Careful how you say show off, because it's like, that's one thing where we're trying to display the aeroplane, and every aeroplane is different. I mean, my aeroplane does some unusual things, and we've made it like that, and it's a great aeroplane. And I've worked hard to make it like that. Other airplanes do other things really well, and so every airplane has its space on the airshow circuit, and it's nice to see a variety of airplanes whenever I go to an airshow. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I suppose it must bring up a little bit, like if there's something needs to be repaired or whatever, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because where everything's sort of being custom made, you've got to then re-custom make stuff to repair
Well,
or
I
whatever.
mean, as I say, I should mention some of the other people involved. I've got 2 or 3 engineers. Now if something breaks and I need some help quickly, they will drop everything and come and help me. Like Adam Jones and a couple of guys from RGB. There's Colin Hales, who's my inspector. Paul, who paints my aeroplanes at Gloucester. I'm sort of Dave Cale is the guy that does all the welding on my aeroplanes. I'll make the bits, he'll weld it up, and promise me it won't come undone.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a bit of a one-man band, but I do, I have friends that help me where necessary, and I really appreciate all of that. And it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. I do appreciate, you guys putting the effort into organise these things, attracting people into, watching air shows and becoming enthusiastic about aeroplanes, and sharing your experiences. And I'm happy to share mine. Both the highs and the lows. Yeah.
Yeah, look, so we're very honoured to be able to have you on.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'd say
We'll go that far.
not.
But no, like, just to kind of hear the whole background and stuff. Like you say, a lot of us will see you at air shows, and we only get to kind of see the display, but not really go behind the scenes into how much effort and work and preparation goes into actually preparing the.
I only have one wife, and she's been, well. Unfortunately, my first wife passed away. But that's why I got into biplanes again, because I needed a bit of something to do in 2004.
Yeah, of course.
But my current wife, she's very tolerant, and she's not particularly interested in aviation, but she's tolerant of my passion and enthusiasm for it, and I hope that rubs off on other people. And we do have a 2-seat aeroplane. Don't all ask at once, but it's not commercially set up to take people flying on a revenue basis, and we don't. But we occasionally take, the odd person, flying in the 2-seat aeroplane. But it's not a sort of it's not a revenue generating thing, and I don't really want to go down that route. My objective before I finish all this stuff is to see if I can get this jet pits thing going. It's not been without its problems. I'll tell you about some of the problems in a minute, for the next 10 or 15 minutes, if anyone's interested. And I do think we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I'd love to have a go in a 2-seater. I think it'd be fantastic.
Come over to Bidford and we'll shove you in it if you want.
Yes. Result.
See what colour he comes out before I agree to go in myself.
Well, the thing is, whenever I take anyone flying, I don't fly it what I don't want to give away is the secret of how easy it is to fly a Pitts. I mean, it's easy to fly a Pitts, but taking off and landing is the biggest challenge. I tell you, you do your display. Well, that was easy. Oh, now I've got to land the damn thing without crashing in front of 60,000 people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd happily put a fiver on me coming out as green as anything.
No, but if you're flying it yourself, then you generally don't feel.
Yeah. I've got to do this. I'm going to do this, right? Fantastic. So if anybody sort of has any sort of comments in terms of where they've seen Rich in terms of air shows, or if anybody's got any photos or whatever that they want us to show off for the last, where are we at, few minutes or so, send it over to any of the social medias. We'll get them on screen, and we'll show Rich, of course, the the wonderful photography that people. I have seen some really good photos of you that obviously haven't been in the in like the slideshow or anything like that. There's some really good pictures, especially at places like a Yeovilton and things like that, because you're quite known for as soon as you take off, knife edging down the runway sort of thing, right in front of the
Yeah,
tower as
so
well. So you get a really good photo of that if you do
well,
Yeovilton.
I mean, on the topic of what we can and can't do within airshow regulations. So I did have a clip of film of it, but basically you have what's called a display authorization, which allows you to do certain types of aerobatics. And you got beginner, intermediate, advanced, unlimited, and stuff like that. And then you say to the authority, well, I want to take off and I want to fly at 10 feet down the runway on its side. And they go, well you can't do that, because what if the engine stops, this, that, and the other. So you then write a risk assessment and you go and prove to them that if the engine does stop, you could successfully land the airplane in as fewer parts as possible. So that all that takes, I mean, that probably took me a year, firstly to get it through at 50 feet, then at 20 feet, and then we're authorized at 10 feet. But I videoed and practiced flying at various heights, including 10 feet, and failing the engine to show that we had flying speed in order to roll the airplane to land on the runway. So someone looks at this, risk assesses it, and all those approvals. It involves me flying down to somewhere, get an examiner to look at it and approve it and say, yes, we can propose this. So again, that's another thing that goes on in the background that you don't see it for the 10-minute display. But every airshow pilot has to go through an examination every year for his own benefit, really, to make sure that he's displaying competently and not over the crowd. And people do make mistakes, and they're not catastrophic mistakes, but the main thing is that we learn from those mistakes. So there's various calls in the airshow industry: too low, too close. If you break limits, and sometimes some weather conditions can be quite challenging. Strong on crowd winds, particularly in smaller aeroplanes. That's life. Things like that happen. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose your license or whatever. There's a sort of mutual understanding. Oh, yeah, too low, whatever. Yeah, made a mistake, whatever. Corrected for it. Didn't do it again. Fine. It goes along to fight another day. So we're trying to do this in a very sort of organised. It can be a risky business, but it's. The risks are mitigated as much as possible, when we display in front of crowds, and that's what the organisers and the flying control committee are responsible for.
Yeah.
And I think we've got it right in this country. You look at the number of air shows in Germany and other European countries, well, particularly Germany after Ramstein, there's not a lot of air shows, and it's quite difficult now. And the last thing we want is an event like that that really knocks air shows on the head, because we have a fantastic air show industry. But there's 50 plus air shows, each summer. I've met a lot of European aviation enthusiasts that come over to UK to watch UK air shows that are put on in the UK, because they're renowned for being some of the best in Europe.
Yeah, I think we are lucky. Like I say, I massively promote Bournemouth Air Show, and just anyone who's watching this, just Google where your local air show is and get down to them, because they're always phenomenal. Yeah, and yeah,
Well,
without your support,
a lot of them are free a lot of the time.
And free. Yeah, absolutely. I asked for pictures or anything that people want to show of them catching Rich at their local air show. We have a few. First one is from Jack Rolls. This is not zoomed in. This is, I want to say, Steve, probably at Bournemouth.
I'd well imagine, yeah.
Thanks, Jack. It's a cracking photo.
It's a really, really good photo.
Well, again,
really good photo.
A big shout out to all the photographers. I mean, some I have personal dealings with, some I don't, but see their photographs. I do apologise if I don't individually write thank you for posting them. I'm not great at social media. I'm trying to get better. if anyone is really good at social media, loves air shows, and wants a little part-page job, then ping me a message, because I haven't really got scripts with Instagram. I'm trying to get better at it. Purely for the benefit of my sponsor and stuff like that.
Yeah,
great photo.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
There you go. Opportunity for someone out there. But yeah, so Jack Roll sent this one to us. So thank you for doing that. I will just grab the other ones. I haven't set this up properly. So I'm going to do this one from.
What time? Just so I know what time. I got a quick chat on the jet thing at the end. Are you factoring that in, or you?
You can talk about it. You can talk about it now if you like, because this
Well,
is from Steve.
Thank you, Steve. You got the right branding on it. No,
Yeah.
I don't know what time you finish, and I've got. I wanted to update people very quickly on the jet.
Yeah, we can go. Yeah, we can go for another. I mean, what you said about 10, 15 minutes. We can go for another half hour, so it's fine. Do 10, 15 minutes,
Yeah,
then
you
we'll wrap
carry.
up. Yeah, it'd be fine. Absolutely fine.
Global stars. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I I saw that. Who's? Do I need to read all these questions? There's so many.
No. I mean, anything that comes through that we have questions of, obviously we'll bring them up and we'll read them out for you. So, yeah, we're just getting some photo. I've got photos being sent to me at the moment, so I'm just grabbing those. But but yeah, I mean, we got the picture of the jet pits up there from, of course, Steve. So yeah, so if you wanted to kind of have a quick sort of chat about the jet pits while we sort of have this picture up.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I've got to get my. You have to.
Oh, of
share
course you got
screen.
your of course you have. All
Well,
right, we'll quickly. That's all right. I know Steve's going to disappear quickly.
So are you sharing that again now? Yeah.
So yeah, so if you want to share your screen.
Yeah. Hang on.
And what I will do just quickly is I'll just bring this up because this is one of my own pictures.
Oh. Yeah. Where is that? That Yeovilton? No.
So that's one of my pictures from, I think, Yeovilton 2017. I think that was.
Yeah.
So that's my contribution.
Yeovilton is a great air show, and a great air show for STEM and stuff like that as well.
Really cool. Yeah, really, really cool.
I've got big echo now for some reason, but anyway.
All right, over to you.
He said. Does that come through?
Let's have a look.
No. Let me just do.
So I'll take it off screen just while you do that.
Is that there we go? Is that good? Can you hear me?
All good? Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, so I'm just going to. This was a video I'd started making about the jet pits and some of the problems we've had, and just explains a bit about some of the problems. Okay, so it's a quick update. I'll briefly talk about the structural design. What's happened there? Hang on. This is not going to be easy. I'll try. Okay, so best even that I don't touch it. I'll just have to speak quickly. So we've got some discussing containment, taxi tests. When we first put it on, the tailplane melted off, but we currently got both engines on. We're able to fly it, but without them running. So Eddie has done all the structural analysis. That's how the jets are mounted. There's a big scaffold tube welded into the fuselage. We've had to actually beef it up again as a result of some more analysis that's been requested, which has been done now. Initially, we had a lot of problems. This is a tailplane. You can see how it's all melted. So we had to change the angle of the jets because it just wouldn't tolerate any of the thrust line on the tailplane at all. So one of the problems with flying with uncertified jet turbines is that you need to deal with containment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all specified in various regulations to do with rotor burst. So this is a sort of, I think it's a 737 with a fan. There's a lot of energy in the fans and the turbines, and you can see where the position is of our jet turbine. If anything explodes, it's going to go through basically my feet. And I thought about risk assessing it and saying, pilot injures foot. lands with 1 foot, but I just don't think the authorities would have had it. So you have to calculate basically a third of the mass of the rotor and rotating at 46,000 RPM. That gives you the energy involved. Now, I approached John Whiten, the other structural sort of stress engineer that we talked about, and he came up with a solution, which is basically a carbon and Kevlar shell. So it's got like Kevlar bands around where the rear hot turbine goes. These are just screenshots of some of the analysis that he's done. So that's simulating a particle coming off the blade. It's just to give you an idea of the sort of stuff we've had to jump through in order to satisfy the regulator. But John Whiten from Acroflight is, he's done an amazing job of getting this through. It's finally been approved, this aspect of it. We had issues initially with the design that Eddie had come up with, the structure analysis. It didn't quite cover all the load cases. So he had to revisit, and basically, so this is the containment. These graphs just show how the kinetic energy contained within the particle when it explodes goes into potential energy. This is making the molds. I've made all these things. So laying out the carbon, you see the Kevlar roving laid up in there. So those shells go around the jet turbines. We did some limited tests with air rifles. So we shot air rifle pellets at the number of layers to check that fragments wouldn't come through. This is just part of the build process of building the nacelles. That's before it was all painted. It's all been painted now. And that's how it looks now. You've got these small little air intakes at the front to keep cool air flowing between the housing and the jet turbine itself. So obviously new weight and balance has been done, and obviously we've flown with both turbines fitted, but we needed to submit more analysis information, more load cases, which John Whiten kindly worked out, gave it to Eddie, and then Eddie put them into his finite element models, and we had to add this. That's how it looks now. It's more than Tom?
Oh,
You can't hear the video, can you?
have we lost?
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Right, I think we're okay.
Yeah. This is just starting up one of the turbines. I've got used to it now. It's quite intimidating. We don't start that's how they all start.
If we just hang fire just very quickly.
Okay.
Right, because the sound went off for a little bit then, so I just want to see if that's worked itself out.
So anything I said then you didn't hear?
Right, no, you're all good. You're all good. Yeah, you're all good.
I'll try and play again from there. You can't hear the noise in the video, can you?
No.
It's a good job because the car alarms will go off. Anyway, yeah, okay. So this is
Have we lost him? I think it's the video, isn't it?
Yeah, when the video goes, it must just put too much strain on the audio.
Just let the video run.
Right, yeah. We'll just let the video run.
Yeah. It's not much more, don't worry.
So I can imagine that's quite loud.
Yeah, it's obviously it's not too bad for me. I've got headsets on. We've done some tactical tests, but the reason you hear me, Tom? Yeah. No, can't hear me.
No, I think we're good. We can hear you, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the reason the house has to be revisited is because having those projections, like having a gyroscope, and when you yaw or pitch, you get forces in different directions at 90 degrees the rotation. It's the extra forces that haven't been incorporated in the initial analysis. So that's why it's taken a long time to get the end result. But it's all been approved now, but it's too much. So you've got the tail up there, but that's as far as we can get. I think after that, there's runs. I think I burnt the brakes out.
I think is the video still playing by any chance?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right, that's fine.
Well, it is for me.
Yeah, so I think every time that you speak, the sound goes a little bit quiet. I don't know why. Didn't do that before.
It does seem that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's fine. I think we get the sort of the idea behind the whole thing. I think a lot of us are probably looking forward to kind of being able to sort of see it at some stage as well.
See and hear, yeah, absolutely.
See and hear it, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions actually. If you can answer it from Transatlantic Allison, are you worried about the airflow presented to the intake of the turbines being impacted by proper wash?
I've turned the volume down at my end. Can you just say that again?
Yeah, sorry, it's a question from Transatlantic Allison saying, are you concerned about the airflow presented to the intake of the turbines being impacted by the prop wash?
It doesn't seem to affect it. This is just doing some spin tests. It doesn't seem to affect it because the compressors are centrifugal compressors, unlike a normal jet turbine. So it hasn't been an issue to date.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, fantastic. That's all,
This will be finished.
all positive.
This will be finished in a minute. But it flies pretty much like the airplane, without the jet turbines on it. So it's not an issue. That's why my confidence has grown in the whole project since.
So not a whole lot of difference, really, like you said.
No, and it's obviously 120 pounds heavier because they weigh 60 pounds each.
Yeah.
I mean, that's flying at a knife edge, so it does all those things. I think that's it.
No, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, lovely.
Right, that's it. Where are we? Let me get rid of that.
That's fine. So we got a couple more images to show you. These come from Owen, who sent me these via Instagram. So thank you very much. Of course, it's the
great photo. Thank you.
the soon-to-be jet pits by that point, I believe. And he also sent this one.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, those.
Really good photos.
Yeah, I know.
I think the knife edge is probably the nicest way to capture a photo of you, I think, doing the knife edge across. It's just such a nice profile to get. You can see.
You can see the different shape. The wing has about another 10 square feet in area, so it's much bigger. And you can see the size of the ailerons. That's why the roll rate's much better. But it's an attractive looking wing as well. It performs incredibly well.
And he says they were from the Midlands Air Festival last year.
Oh, it's a shame I'm not going to be there this year. They haven't booked me. There you go.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for sending those to us. So, after an hour and 45 minutes, I think it's safe to say we've all been educated this evening in regards to sort of behind the scenes with what exactly goes on with the pits biplanes and, of course, the whole running and preparing and everything else. And, of course, the projects that you've got going on at the moment. I think everyone's quite informed. I know I am. I know Steve will be quite informed by everything.
Absolutely.
And would have enjoyed sort of listening to to your PowerPoint and just going through pretty much everything. I've sat there and just been completely sort of mesmerised by it all. So so like I said, a massive thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, it's been really nice being here, and once again, thank you very much for you guys for making the effort to set up all these sort of things, and all the photographers out there and the organisers of the air shows. Because without you guys, our existence would be pretty pointless. So
Yeah,
it is much appreciated. It's been a sort of a small chapter in my sort of aviation life. I'm really enjoying it. I'm passionate about it, and happy to talk to anyone about it at any time, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it truly comes across your enthusiasm and love for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Right, so at the end of the show now, and normally at this stage we go through a whole bunch of shout outs that we give to family, friends, loved ones, or in Rich's case, sponsors and everybody else in between. I know you've had a few shout outs already, Rich, but we're going to kind of put you on the spot here. And if there's anybody else at this point that you'd like to kind of give a quick shout out to that sort of comes to mind, now is your chance.
Well, just all the people that personally helped me to get where I am today. Really appreciate it. Particularly Chris, Rog, sponsors, and all the engineers that helped me weld up my plane, and Greg Payno, my fellow TUI colleague who's doing his 737 type rating at the moment. He's always been there when I've needed him in terms of, can you hold this, Greg, while I'm doing this? And of course my wife. But yeah, no, I think I've waffled on enough. Thanks a lot. Don't forget Timemouth, GoFundMe.
Yeah, we'll get that. Yeah, we'll get that mentioned just before we shout out. But before we end the show, rather. But yeah, no, brilliant, fantastic. Right, Steve, over to you. I'd normally go to Ian, but Ian's not here, so over to you this time.
Oh, yeah, well, first up, we just had a comment here from Ricky Keogh. Absolutely delighted, mate. Welcome to it. Tom will put our socials up later on, and you can follow us. And if there's any questions about aviation you wish to ask, then we'll be more than happy to sort of help guide you through. And the more the merrier. So yeah, welcome. My shout outs tonight would be went to a barbecue this afternoon with sister-in-law and my niece and some friends, Lucy and Ed, and their young boy Rory, and it was an absolute pleasure. And it was a very nice way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Obviously, Rich, for coming on here. It's incredibly kind of insightful to see what you to go through and that. And when I see you at Bournemouth, it will be a totally different thing, knowing how much sort of effort and the like went into it. He's not here, obviously, tonight. Young Ian and his daughter Tian deserve a special shout out as well as yourself there, Tom. So thanks for having me on again. It's been an enjoyable show.
No problem. No problem at all. A lot of love for Rich in the comments, saying about how insightful the chat was and things like that. So, really informative.
I've noticed the odd comment about how long I've been flying and stuff like that. I think I forgot to mention at the beginning. I started flying model aeroplanes, and I'd thoroughly recommend any youngster who's interested in flying, build a model aeroplane. It's an amazing hobby. But you can the other. I mean, I wasn't gliding at 14, but I think I was gliding at 16. But gliding is a reasonably cheap way into aviation, and you can actually go solo in a glider at the age of 14 before you can drive. And Wings and Wheels is a Bidford Gliding Club. I should have given them a shout out. So if you live in the Midlands, then it's a free event, and you've got youngsters, you want to get them involved with gliding, then they're very, very good with youngsters and getting them going, flying. Sorry, another shout out. Sorry about
that. No. You're allowed as many as you like. You're allowed as many as you like. Brilliant. All right, I'll go on to my shout outs now. So firstly, of course, Rich, thank you very much for like I say, devoting some time for us this evening. I know obviously you're busy with preparing for obviously a very busy airshow schedule now that obviously air shows are becoming a regular thing again. So for taking time out to speak to us today, very humbled and much appreciated. So thank you so much. Let me get rid of that comment there. Yes. So also Steve, of course, co-host as always, doing a very stellar job as per normal. Show wouldn't be the same without you. It'd be a lot better.
I'll give you
I'm
my
always wanting
response
to get a
off
jab
air.
in there because it's always happened to everyone else. So I thought I'll get a jab in there as well. So we'll go. But yeah, no, fantastic as always. Everybody watching in the comment in the chat tonight, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I also want to give a very quick shout out to somebody who I know I've been in touch with. I think this week has been through a lot, and I promised I'd give a shout out to her. So her name's Becky. So if you are watching, which I believe she is, this shout out is for you, and hopefully, puts a smile on your face and things get a lot better for you. And of course, as always, shout out to all the key workers and frontline workers across the world for the continued effort during a tricky time. And of course, we have other things to be concerned about now as well, such as monkeypox, whatever that is. So that'd be nice. But yeah, so a big thank you to everybody that, like I said, have been watching tonight as well. So next week, because I was in the chat about 2-3 hours before the show, and somebody asked, who do we have on next week? I was like, we haven't even got through this one yet. So, but we are very privileged next week to welcome back to the show. And I do have a video for anybody who might not know who he is, but he's so funny. He's like one of my favorite aviation YouTubers. It is, of course, Matt Cochran. If you don't know who Matt Cochran is, I suggest finding his channel and watching his content because it is absolutely hilarious. I've got a little snippet that I'm going to play for you, and we'll go for it and just have a little listen. But this is who is joining us next week.
What was the flight number on this one, John? He's off to LAX. He's off to Julianville. Those of you who know Julian, those of you who don't, I'm sorry, you should. Now, don't miss the video, John, because you're getting flight information.
1955.
Delta 1955. Out to LAX. Amazing. And we hear it. There's some foghole. 777ER. Very good. Wow. Perfect focus. We're doing well. Last air bridge back there. Whoa. What a marvelous sight. It's going to roll long. Sickening! Absolute sickening. Focus on it before it disappears, and goodbye into the 600-foot lover cast. Wow, that was a treat.
So he will be joining us. He is very unique in his videos. He tends to put out commentary that is very, very funny. So he'll be joining us again next week. He's recently been in the UK to Edinburgh, to which point I'm looking forward to that video. So he's going to be on the show talking about that, and of course everything else in between his last appearance as well. So next Sunday, 7:30 p.m. We will be here with Matt Cochran, but we are now going to say, before we do, actually, I've just remembered, we're going to put out social medias. Rich, of course, you do have a website. If you want to sort of mention it to the people still watching, where they can sort of find your website and what it's called.
Rich Goodwin Airshows, just search it on Google. I keep struggling to keep it up to date, but anyway, it should tell you where we're going in June anyway.
Fantastic. So you can, I imagine that we'll give your social medias out, but I mean, if you were to search your name on social medias, they're like the first thing that comes up. So, of course, you're on Instagram and Twitter, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not struggling with Instagram a bit. If anyone's an expert,
get in touch.
Okay.
But yes, but in terms of the show, like I said, we are on Twitter. So if you want to follow us on Twitter and keep up to date with everything that's going on, you can find us on that handle. If you want to like the Facebook page, you can do so. I know Rich has done that because I saw the notification earlier and went a bit like, yeah, I got a bit happy about it. And of course, Instagram as well. If you fancy looking at some old school photos that I have, I may just put one up of Rich because I fancy it. Why not? You can follow us on that there as well. Steve has his own Instagram, so you can also follow Steve on his personal Instagram. And Ian has one as well because we'll promote that as well. Even though he isn't here, we'll promote his own Instagram. Sweet. Wicked. All that's left for us to do is say a massive thank you once again for watching, and we are going to say our goodbyes. Now, Rich, we didn't tell you this, but we tend to say goodbye one by one and take you off the screen. But we're going to get you to go first. Whether you want to stick around or not afterwards for a little chat afterwards is entirely up to you. But yeah, for now, if you'd like to say goodbye to those that are still watching.
Yeah, well, thank you very much to all those photographers, airshow supporters, and I look forward to seeing you this season.
Brilliant. And of course, we can see you next week, and you are at, is it Wings and Wheels? Wheels and Wings?
Oh, yeah, everybody, it's a live stream. In fact, we're going to have, I should have mentioned that, we're going to have live stream in the cockpit for the Armchair Air Show.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I don't know what time I'm displaying, but it'll be live camera outside, but also they've got cameras inside, and they'll be switching between the two, I guess. When I don't know how it works. It's all these aerials on the airplane.
Brilliant, fantastic. So we'll keep an eye out for that, and yeah, well worth checking that out. I know I'll be doing that. So yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so Rich, thank you so much, and best of luck with the airshow season.
Thank you, mate.
Steve, in the most Steve way possible, if you'd like to say goodbye to the rest of the viewers.
Yeah, thank you again for watching. All right, cheerio, my lovelies. Stay safe, stay sexy, and until next time, look after yourselves. All right, have a good week, and we will see you soon. Take care now.
Brilliant. I love it. Just gets better every time. Fantastic. And yeah, brilliant. So hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next weekend for another wonderful show, no doubt, with Matt Cochran. So for now, have a fantastic week. Don't do anything silly. Or do, whatever. And yeah, we'll see you next week for another wonderful show. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Goodbye.